good, royal family? It's Queen's Throne, and I'm back at you again for another video. Shout out to the royal family. Please make sure that you hit the like button, and if you're new here, please also make sure you hit the like button. It is free and I do appreciate it. It helps the video get out to more people. Now, before we get started with today's video, I briefly wanted to just talk to you guys about the direction of this channel. It will still be true crime. However, we're gonna look at some different aspects of true crime. A lot of you guys know that my channel is dedicated to sexual abuse type of topics or speaking up for children and things like that. So today's video is also a compilation of several recent situations involving rape and molestation, both of, adults as well as children. But the direction that my channel will be going into is a little bit away from the news clips and things like that, as there are other aspects of true crime that I would like to address. I mean, we've addressed body cams, news clips, interrogations, things like that, and I feel like it's time to incorporate more. So that is what we'll be doing after this video starting tomorrow. But for this video, I really felt compelled to do this video because I'm always getting asked or criticized for why I continue to look into these type of situations involving sex crimes of children or rape of adults and things like that. And simply enough, A, because I'm an advocate, and B, I am a survivor. And I will continue to talk about these topics as much as I want because not enough people are talking about it, and there definitely needs to be some change. Oftentimes, predators are arrested, they're sentenced to prison, if they even get prison at all, and they, serve the bare minimum and they are put back out on the streets. And sometimes they don't even do the sexual predator classes that they are supposed to do or anything to help prepare them to not reoffend when they get out. So oftentimes they become reoffenders and come back. But what I have been researching for quite some time now behind the scenes is the fact that they do reoffend when they come out, and the sex offender classes do not help at all. And that's kind of what we're going to be getting into starting tomorrow. But for today, I just compiled a number of these type of cases, right, with sexual abuse and rape, and the abuser a lot of the times in the cases will maybe possibly surprise you because some of them are upstanding alleged citizens, some are teachers, and so on and so forth. So for about the next hour, we're gonna look at several cases that are recent, new arrests, new charges, new violations, whatever. And I want you to know that each of these clips is a different case, unless you see a transition. But these cases just continue and continue to come out, and somebody has to speak up for the victims that have not spoke up yet. They have not gotten help. And also, honestly, I feel like just the topic itself is something that we need to look at because a lot of these situations are swept under the rug, and this is what I choose to do as a survivor. And I also researched a lot, so I understand the legal terms and things like that and how cases go. So with no further ado, for the next hour, we're gonna look at some of these cases. I will still be talking about news clips, but not as often as I once was. So I hope you enjoy this video. For anybody that wanted to know why I continue to look into these cases, it's because it hasn't stopped. Because there are really creepy, sick people out there. But I'll be damned if I just be quiet about it. So let's go, y'all.
This 70-year-old Largo man is facing felony charges after investigators say he tried to meet up for sex with who he thought was a 14-year-old girl. It was, in fact, an undercover agent. Investigators say that Joseph Walter exposed himself in a video chat and made explicit comments even after he was told multiple times he was talking to a minor.
A convicted sex offender plans to plead guilty to making child pornography. 26-year-old Keenan Shadowshi has signed a federal statement saying he shot a sexual video of an underage girl in 2021. He's scheduled to plead guilty next month and faces 15 to 30 years in prison. He's on the sex offender registry for sexually exploiting 2 teenage girls in 2017.
A new Underwood sex offender is back behind bars this midday, accused of committing the same crime that put him on the sex offender registry in the first place. 47-year-old Kent Joy faces federal child pornography charges. The charging document says the alleged crimes began in 2018. Joy has been registered as a sex offender since 2005. That's when a military court convicted him of child pornography.
A registered sex offender in Concord now facing new charges for allegedly exposing himself in a downtown Concord apartment window twice over the last month. So police got a call on March 28th reporting a person exposing themselves for, quote, an extended period of time while for some reason looking through binoculars toward downtown Concord. Well, 4 days later, an off-duty officer saw someone in that same window, again exposing himself. That man, now identified as 38-year-old Christopher Dastrup of Concord, he is facing several charges tonight.
This morning, law enforcement are working to make sure registered sex offenders remain in compliance in Stewart County. The TBI, Highway Patrol, and deputies from Stewart and Montgomery counties held a one-day compliance check this week. Law enforcement made contact with 20 registered sex offenders, and 17 of them were found to be compliant. The 3 offenders found to be non-compliant were arrested.
A former UCLA gynecologist was sentenced today to 11 years in prison for sex-related acts involving 2 patients. The jury found that the victims were particularly vulnerable and the doctor abused his position of trust. Earlier today, Heap's attorneys filed a motion for a new trial. The judge denied that. Heaps was also ordered to register as a sex offender. The University of California system had agreed to pay nearly $700 million to settle lawsuits brought by hundreds of alleged victims.
So we have some developing news of a Los Angeles police officer arrested and accused of sexually assaulting a child under 14 years old. Diego Jose Miranda Lopez was an officer assigned to the North Hollywood area. When he was confronted with the allegations, he resigned. He's been booked into jail and being held without bail. Police tell us the alleged assault happened prior to him becoming a police officer with the LAPD.
Jersey doctor is facing more criminal charges after allegedly sexually assaulting his patients. 2 women claim the 55-year-old Gurvindra Johal touched them inappropriately while under his care at Amboy Urgent Care on Cornell Street in Perth Amboy. One of them says that he raped her. Johal was arrested this past Saturday and charged with 2 counts of criminal sexual contact. He faces 2 additional counts now of sexual contact, criminal sexual contact, and 1 count of sexual assault.
Destiny Hillsman is accused of having an inappropriate relationship with 2 female students. Andy Sirota has been digging through court papers all day, and he's live in our newsroom with what he's uncovered. Andy?
Daniela, Destiny Hillsman is no longer working at HISD's Holland Middle School. The 25-year-old educator is accused of having an inappropriate relationship with 2 girls, a 13 and 14-year-old. According to court papers, Hillsman kissed and texted both girls, telling the 14-year-old at one point that she was her soulmate. In her statements to police, Hillsman also telling investigators that she professed her love to the 13-year-old and bought her a ring so they could have matching ones, telling her in a text message, quote, "I'm always with you forever." Also, according to court papers, Hillsman believed the 13-year-old was, quote, her person, and that if anyone ever found out about the 2 of them, she would look bad because she's an adult and the 13-year-old is a child. Court papers also state that she sent the 14-year-old a text that read, quote, "You're a good kisser. Your kisses are passionate. And I honestly don't get that a lot." Another read, "I want you to chase me because you want to, not because I want you to." Hillsman was arrested and charged in October of last year. She also told investigators she made a mistake and is not a bad person, adding that in of the cases, she wasn't the only one to blame for the relationship.
Well, guys, Dylan De Palma worked at this karate studio here in Gilbert. It was here where police say he met the 15-year-old student and also where he had sex with her.
Tell me your full name, please, sir.
Good morning, Dylan Frederick De Palma.
22-year-old Dylan De Palma facing a judge last month, arrested on child sex crimes.
3 counts of sexual misconduct with a minor, all 3 of them are Class 2 felonies.
But the martial arts instructor recently indicted on 8 felony counts of sexual conduct with a minor. It was here at De Palma's Team USA Martial Arts near Lindsay and Pecos Roads, where police say De Palma met the victim when she was an 8-year-old student. Court records say last October, he asked the now 15-year-old to work for him at the front desk. During her shift, police say he had sex with her at the karate studio. De Palma reportedly fired her the next day. Court records say the victim and the 22-year-old remain in contact as she still attended classes at the Queen Creek location. Over the next few months, police say De Palma and the victim had sex at his home and his car. At times, even sending each other nude photos on social media. During an interview with detectives, De Palma allegedly admitted the victim was a former student and employee of his, but denied any sexual relationship with her. 12 News learning the studio where De Palma worked, a state vendor, getting ESA voucher money. The program doesn't require fingerprinting of employees. We talked to Superintendent of Schools, Tom Horn, about the case.
Why aren't these vouchers being, there's no background checks, and how can we verify where these funds are going?
That issue was considered by the legislature when they passed universal ESAs, and there had been a proposal to include background checks, and the legislature decided not to. So I'm a servant to the legislature. I have to do whatever they decide.
We tried speaking with the karate school's owner Wednesday, but we're told he wasn't there. Now, Dylan De Palma posted a $25,000 cash bond the day after his arrest. He is now on house arrest with an electronic monitor.
An outburst in a San Diego courtroom today from a convicted sex offender. La Jolla restaurant owner Daniel Dorado was sentenced to 40 years in prison in 2020 for sexually assaulting 4 women. As CBS 8's David Goffredson reports, Dorado waited until the very end of his resentencing hearing to give the court a piece of his mind.
This is a full resentencing hearing. We're starting afresh.
The resentencing of sex offender Daniel Dorado started with arguments from his defense attorney that the La Jolla restaurant owner's 40-year prison sentence should be reduced, given new laws in California favoring lower prison terms.
I believe that in its entirety, the sentencing scheme is not made to use one finding to increase the penalties every single place that you can.
The 64-year-old was previously convicted of getting 4 women intoxicated and sexually assaulting them.
He committed 2 separate acts of oral copulation against her while she was intoxicated and unconscious.
By inviting them into his business for job interviews or meeting them on online dating apps.
There is 0 evidence of acceptance of responsibility by Mr. Dorado. In fact, he blamed his convictions on the district attorney. He blamed his convictions on the Me Too movement.
Then, under the new sentencing laws, Judge Charles Rogers shaved just 2 years off of Dorado's original term.
The total aggregate term, therefore, that is imposed in this case is 38 years.
And that's when Dorado just went off.
Nobody was ever unconscious and no one was ever intoxicated. I was cordial, I was respectful, I was kind, and I was a gentleman to every single one of these people. But I'm in here for 40 years for something I haven't done because a massive amount of evidence was never even shown that we have to go to the clerk now to request because my own attorney didn't turn anything over to me. Neither did my private investigator, so I apologize. But how would you feel if you're in my case being accused by the judge of not having any remorse, of doing heinous things to somebody who destroyed all of their evidence?
Is there anything further?
No, just have an enjoyable upcoming weekend, folks.
Now, Dorado claims text messages and photos related to the case were deleted and they could have helped his defense. He told the judge he plans on filing an appeal.
And David, just to be clear here, a jury did find the evidence against Dorado to be true and did convict him for assaulting 4 women. That's correct?
That's correct. The jury found him guilty on 20 counts. They did also find him not guilty on several other counts. But at the end of the hearing today, the judge reminded him that a sentencing hearing is not the time to retry the case.
The social media trail that police say led them to a child sex assault suspect. As we first told you yesterday, Gabriel Gonzalez is accused of using apps to groom and violate young girls. But social media was also the catalyst for his arrest. This Instagram account was a lifeline for the victim, according to the creators.
She was, of course, scared of coming forward because she didn't want to get in trouble, especially with her parents. She didn't want to get in trouble with Gabriel.
KPRC 2's Rowan Belogan live in our newsroom. And Rowan, the creator of that Instagram account, says Gonzalez preys on girls and young women.
Yeah, Lisa, the page creators tell me they're aware of some minors who they say were assaulted by the 22-year-old. They're working with investigators to get others to come forward.
Incredibly relieved. It was something that at first I just didn't really believe was real.
We're not identifying this woman because she said she was victimized by Gabriel Gonzalez, the 22-year-old charged with sexual assault of a child. We're learning the 15-year-old victim who led police to Gonzalez first reached out to this Instagram page, which was created by a group of women who say they had previous run-ins with Gonzalez.
She was, of course, scared of coming forward because she didn't want to get in trouble, especially with her parents. She didn't want to get in trouble with Gabriel.
She did come forward, and now Montgomery County investigators are seeking other potential victims and working with the creators of the Instagram page.
We are aware of that Instagram page, and we're making contact with that with the owner of that page to find out what information they have and what information caused them to post that up.
The women say the relief they felt at Gonzalez's arrest quickly went away after learning he's out on bond.
Any kind of peace of mind, any kind of relief, any kind of solace that I'd felt just for that short amount of time, I just felt was ripped away from me.
But they say this won't stop their work of helping potential victims come forward. A condition of Gonzalez's felony bond, he cannot have contact with anyone under 18 or use the internet.
Nahom Gatanya appearing in court on charges of sexual assault and attempted rape. The 33-year-old allegedly attacked an MIT student in the Back Bay. It was almost midnight Saturday when the victim was bringing a bicycle into the back of her sorority's building. Police say Gatanya followed her inside, then pushed her into a laundry area. During the attack, the police report states Gatanya tried to strangle the victim, saying, "Do you want to die?" Eventually, the victim broke free and locked herself in a closet until police arrived. Boston's mayor is grateful for the arrest.
Situations that are horrible like this are very quickly resolved, and so I'm glad to see accountability in this case.
Gatanya was tracked down and arrested in the area known as Mass and Cass. He was wanted for failing to register as a level 3 sex offender following a 2007 conviction in Cambridge with the same sexual assault charge he faces today.
No single incident is something that we look away from, and whatever part of the city that is happening, we're going to devote resources to making sure that everyone is safe.
The suspect also has an open case on drug possession. Today, the judge ordered that he be held without bail until a dangerousness hearing on Monday.
Tonight, shocking allegations against another teacher at a local school, a music teacher charged with having an inappropriate relationship with a student. And that teacher replaced another music teacher 2 years ago who also allegedly had a relationship with a student.
Shelley Bortz is live with what she just learned about the investigation. Shelley.
Well, you're right. Olivia Orts replaced the music teacher here at Wilmington Area School District 2 years ago after he lost his job for alleged inappropriate relationships with several students. He's awaiting trial.
As soon as it was discovered, it was reported to Childline, it was reported to us.
Police were alerted to a possible romantic relationship between then choir director Olivia Orts and a 17-year-old student by the high school principal in April. The month-long investigation, police say, turned up a treasure trove of evidence to support the claim, including text messages, a love letter, and overnights here at Orts' home while her husband was out of town.
He believed that it was an adult male that she was having a relationship with. She told him it wasn't what he thought, what certainly turned out to be accurate, and she ended up admitting that the letter was from a female student.
On May 5th, police executed a search warrant on the Orts home and confiscated a cell phone and iPad. Police say the two continued to communicate and exchanged 100 messages during a 2-day period last week until they got caught.
The two of them exchanged over 100 surreptitious communications using a music app so nobody would discover it.
We went to Orts' parents' home in Hermitage where she is staying and knocked on the door. Her father greeted us. Is she home?
She's home, she's no comment.
Okay, would you like to make a comment, sir?
Not at all.
Now, Orts is being charged with intercourse and sexual conduct with a school student, as well as unlawful contact with a minor. Now, she's due in court next week.
Is a sex offender who had failed to register with police. Thanks for joining us. I'm Chris Tanaka. The 33-year-old is accused of assaulting an MIT student as she was returning to her sorority house. WBZ's Christina Rex is live in the Back Bay with these breaking details tonight. Christina.
Chris, that attack happened right in this back alley here off of Mass Ave over the weekend. And tonight, women who live in this neighborhood tell me they're feeling relieved knowing that the man who allegedly committed this crime is behind bars.
That's scary. Somebody that lives alone right there, that's a little disheartening.
A frightening attack in Back Bay had women on edge after Boston police say an MIT student was attacked from behind by a man on a bicycle in this back alley, forced into the back door of her sorority house and sexually assaulted inside.
I'm honestly, that makes me emotional. Like, it's just so scary, especially because that's like right across the street from me.
On Tuesday afternoon, police arrested this man, 33-year-old Nahom Gitana, for the assault. He's a level 3 sex offender in Massachusetts because of a 2007 conviction, meaning he's someone with a high risk of reoffending who poses a danger to the public, according to the sex offender registry.
Someone being followed, and this is a third-party call. Someone's been pushed to the ground.
Police had put out these images of their suspect after the attack happened Saturday night around midnight. The neighborhood around Beacon Street and Mass Ave houses many students from nearby BU and MIT.
I don't know, it's kind of a little scary. Like, I feel like I walk back and forth here like at night all the time, and so like it's a little concerning to hear.
Women who live here say they'll take extra safety precautions now.
I do. I have a camera, and then I also do carry pepper spray. So unfortunately, these things do happen. You have to stay aware of your surroundings. I'm considering getting pepper spray myself or just having someone with me when I do take out the trash at night.
And I spoke off camera with some women who know the victim in this case. They tell me she is okay and receiving a lot of support. That suspect is expected to be arraigned in Boston tomorrow.
Breaking news, an LAPD officer is under arrest.
Yeah, he's accused of a sex crime related to a child. KCAL News assignment editor Mike Rogers at the desk. Mike, what's the latest?
Yeah, Jeff and Susie, this just came across our desk. LAPD announcing the arrest of a North Hollywood Division probationary officer. I want to show you this graphic. It's got some information about what he's being charged with. This is Diego Jose Miranda Lopez. He was a probationary officer at the North Hollywood station. He has been arrested and accused of forcible rape of a child under the age of 14 years old. Now, this alleged crime occurred before his employment with the LAPD. We don't know exactly when he was hired at LAPD and how long he had been in the department, but we do know that as soon as he was confronted with these allegations, LAPD says he immediately resigned. He was arrested today. I'm looking at his booking information now. He is still in custody, being held on no bail. He was actually booked in this morning. So that officer is in custody now. He has resigned with the LAPD, but again, this 23-year-old probationary officer in custody accused of raping a child under the age of 14. Jeff and Susie.
Child sexual abuse in the school system. They say teachers and school administrators are covering it up, and they're demanding transparency and action.
KTLA's John Fenolio is live in Redlands with more on the explosive allegations. John.
Sure, Micah, good evening to you. Redlands Unified School District has just 25 schools and just over 20,000 students. The district is small in comparison to the number of allegations of sexual abuse by teachers in recent years. Tonight, many parents and students say school administrators aren't doing enough to keep kids safe.
Those are the real predators in our public schools, and the fact that Redlands is undeniably the nation's poster city for this kind of abuse.
Tonight, parents and community members are demanding answers following allegations of sexual abuse by teachers at Redlands Public Schools.
And clearly more needs to be done to break the silence about the abuse that threatens our children.
Renewed concerns over potential sexually predatory teachers within the Redlands Unified School District follow a CBS News investigation that aired earlier this month. Tonight is the first school board meeting since the report's broadcast.
It's outrageous, and I mean, they should be ashamed of themselves for allowing this to happen.
Melissa Castro is one of the dozens of Redlands residents who showed up at Tuesday's meeting. The crowd too large to fit inside the school board's room, leaving many to watch from a monitor in the parking lot.
We need to clean up the whole Redlands school board and get people in there that are really going to protect all of our children.
According to CBS reports, Redlands school administrators repeatedly dismissed claims of sexual abuse, failed to report allegations to authorities, and even pressured some alleged student victims and suspected abusers to move to other schools or districts. CBS reports that in the last 10 years, more than 50 Redlands students have sued their former school over alleged sexual abuse, and that the district has paid out more than $41 million in settlements over the past decade to former students who allege teachers sexually abused them.
You expect that when you send your child to school that they're going to be safe, but you really, I mean, with those high numbers, that's ridiculous.
Candy Olson and her daughter Ava, who is a Redlands student, both addressed the school board and demanded better accountability.
They act like they're going to do something about it, and they never do, and nothing ever happens. So I feel like if I say something that happens, they won't do anything about it.
Ava and her friend Alyssa both described a teacher at their former middle school they claimed behaved inappropriately.
He would stare at me when I would walk away or when I'd walk by, and he made comments on how my shorts fit me, which I don't think he has any say on that. He shouldn't say anything about me or my body. He talked about rubbing oil on her body and just inappropriate things like that.
We were unable to speak with school board members tonight. We did, however, speak with a law firm representing many of the student victims. They say that they currently have 9 sexual abuse cases in litigation with the school district and have at least 20 prior cases.
A Houston mother is demanding answers tonight after she says her 6-year-old son was repeatedly sexually assaulted while riding the school bus. An investigation is underway right now in Aldine ISD. ABC 13's Maya Shea joins us live with these serious allegations, Maya.
Yeah, these allegations are so disturbing, and the mother says she believes it's gone on for several months, but it wasn't until her son lost his backpack last week and she called here at the transportation department to get to the bottom of this missing backpack that everything came out into the open. LaToya Stormy Monroe is devastated. She says she had no idea that her 6-year-old son was being sexually assaulted on the school bus.
I feel like as a parent, I failed my child. It hurts. I didn't protect him. I don't know what to do.
Monroe was joined by community activists today in front of the Aldine bus barn to discuss what they believe happened, that over the past several months, an older child would repeatedly molest and sexually assault Monroe's son on the bus, and that the bus driver didn't notice.
According to the investigator, the bus driver stopped the bus because she thought they were fighting on the back of the bus, but this mother's child was fighting because he was being raped.
Monroe says everything came to light last Tuesday when efforts to track down her son's missing backpack led school officials to look at surveillance video on the bus. Then she got a call.
I get to the school and I find out that my son was sexually assaulted. Days of questioning, days of talking to my child, the details became more and more graphic each and every time.
Since then, her son has been treated at the hospital and they've spoken to investigators. In a statement, the district says in part, an investigation by Aldine ISD police and district officials immediately began on Wednesday, February 1st. CPS was notified. Once the investigation has concluded, appropriate action will be taken based on investigation findings. Meanwhile, Monroe says her son doesn't even fully understand what happened.
He's not really at his age understanding the magnitude. He actually really stated that why couldn't this kid be given a second chance? If God gives second chances, why couldn't the perpetrator?
Monroe says she hopes her speaking out today will get her answers and justice for her son.
An 11-year-old is now facing felony charges for allegedly sexually assaulting a 6-year-old boy on a school bus.
We first told you about this disturbing story last week. Maria Aguilera joins us from the newsroom with the update. Maria.
Len Mia, the Harris County District Attorney's Office confirmed tonight the suspect, who is 11 years old and a student at Aldine ISD, has been charged with 3 counts of aggravated sexual assault of a child, all felony charges. It was last week on February 6th when the mother of the 6-year-old spoke out during a news conference with community activist Quanell X and Dr. Candace Matthews. We're not showing her to protect her son's identity. She said this all started earlier this month when she asked the school to look into an incident about her son's backpack being thrown out of the school bus window. The mother said once the district reviewed the camera footage from the bus, they saw the alleged sexual abuse taking place. They called her back to the school later that day to let her know. And she says, according to the school, surveillance video reveals the abuse went back months and may have started in September. The school told us they alerted district police and CPS on February 1st, which began an immediate investigation, which resulted in the charges tonight. We reached out to Matthews and Quanell tonight. In a joint statement, they say, quote, "This is a tragic case that involves more than one family. In this case, there are no winners, but there are definitely losers, the children in particular." They go on to ask for prayers for the children and for the district to come up with real solutions to prevent this from ever happening again. The mother told us last week her son is too young to understand what happened, but the DA's office says he is undergoing counseling. Certainly a terrible situation that will continue to follow.
A former Cumberland County substitute teacher now facing charges of indecent liberty with a student, making her first court appearance today.
That's right. CBS 17's Justin Moore was inside the courtroom and joins us live with how the school district is reacting. Justin.
Lakeisha Davis was a middle school substitute teacher and coach. Today, Cumberland County Schools tells us she's no longer employed. Shackled standing next to her attorney, Lakeisha Davis makes her first court appearance on Tuesday. The 46-year-old could face up to 20 years in prison for 2 counts of indecent liberties with a student and 8 counts of felonious restraint. Davis was assigned substitute teacher at New Century International Middle School in Fayetteville. Prosecutors say she would have age-inappropriate sex education conversations with students. They say she would pay for hotel rooms so students can have sex, drive them to the hotels, and ask them detailed questions about the sex afterwards. Cumberland County Schools released a statement. It reads in part, "We take this matter very seriously, as our top priority is always the safety and well-being of our students and staff. As part of regular procedures, Cumberland County Schools conducts extensive background checks on all employees. When the allegations were brought to our attention, we immediately reported them to law enforcement." Now, Davis and Cumberland County Schools parted ways back in March. She remains here at Cumberland County Detention Center on a $75,000 secured bond.
Nearly 100 women accused an OB/GYN doctor of sexual assault. And now that doctor may avoid any punishment or any lawsuits at all. 94 women claim they were sexually assaulted while getting medical care from Dr. David Broadbent in Utah. I'll speak with one of them in a moment. But the allegations range from unwanted groping to unnecessary rectal exams. The doctor has been practicing for about 50 years and is now being called out by numerous women, may not even see the inside of a courtroom. A judge throwing out the case without even looking at the evidence. The lawsuit, which was first filed over a year ago, revealed many of the women alleged Broadbent inappropriately touched them. Some saying he used his bare hand rather than a speculum or gloves or during exams. One of the women speaking up in the lawsuit against Broadbent is Stephanie Mateer. She was 19 when she walked into his office, and this is what she says happened.
He had me put on a gown and came back in the room and reached up the gown and did a breast exam. And it was not like flat palm, it was like grabbing. And then he proceeded to do a vaginal exam without any warning. But then I was even more shocked when he proceeded to do a rectal exam without any warning. It was super painful and just like really aggressive. And then, you know, as he was finishing up, he said, "Well, your husband's a lucky man."
This massive lawsuit accuses Broadbent of sexual assault. But in Utah, when medical professionals are accused of assault, the civil legal system treats it as a medical malpractice case, and Utah's rules make it a lot harder to sue for medical malpractice, including giving victims a shorter window to sue. Now, after being sued by the group of women, Broadbent quickly lost privileges at the hospitals where he worked, his medical license on hold as the investigation continues, and his prosecutors determine whether to criminally prosecute him. The women now appealing to the Utah Supreme Court, which has agreed to hear the case.
It does help me to have a little faith in the justice system that, now the Supreme Court of Utah is taking on the case and they're interested in looking at it, and hopefully that will set a better precedent for this, because we can't be calling sexual assault healthcare.
Let's be clear, these appeals are not easy to win. I sat down with one of the alleged victims, Brooke, and her attorney, Anthony T. DiPetro. Thank you both so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brooke, let me start with you. Just tell us what happened to you.
So in 2008, I was expecting my first child. I had gone into premature labor, about 33 weeks gestation, and I was taken by ambulance to Utah Valley Hospital in Provo, Utah, and there I was given the doctor who was on duty, and that was Dr. Broadbent. I had only been there about 2 hours when he was saying that he needed to do an exam on me. And within that time, he did sexually assault me. At that time, it was my first child. I didn't know what was considered normal. And because it was in front of both my husband and brother-in-law at the time, I started second-guessing myself, thinking maybe I misunderstood what happened, or maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed.
And did you talk to anyone at the hospital about what had happened to you?
So when it initially happened, it felt wrong. I didn't feel comfortable. So when I talked to my husband, we both decided that if we brought it up, it could impede the care of my unborn child. So we decided not to mention it and just to let it go. But for the week that followed, each time the doctor would come into my room, I would start to go into strong contractions and have severe anxiety. So my husband had left the hospital room, and one of the nurses that I really enjoyed came in, and I asked her if that was normal. She went and got a nurse manager, and they told me that they would escalate it and that I could have a different doctor for the remainder of my time at the hospital.
And how did you feel when you found out that there were all these other women who something had happened to?
I was blown away, but it also validated that I wasn't wrong, that it wasn't something that I made bigger in my head.
Let's talk about what's happened in your case, which is that you file this case. This judge dismisses it. What happened? What was the specific reasons that the judge dismissed it?
Well, so the case was never filed as a medical malpractice case, right? As we all know, sexual abuse is not a form of medical care. The defense lawyers for the hospital, for the institutions where Broadbent was employed or had an affiliation with, raised the question with the court to say, hey, these cases aren't pled properly. They should be pled as medical malpractice cases.
How are you feeling about what is happening with this doctor now? There's a criminal investigation that is ongoing. His privileges have been suspended, et cetera. What's your reaction to all of that?
It's definitely warranted, but I do think it goes beyond Dr. Broadbent himself. I think we need to hold accountable the institutions who gave him privileges at the hospitals that they own, and allowed this abuse to go on for more than 40 years.
Do you expect that he's going to be charged criminally?
Yes.
You have additional kids now?
I do.
How many kids?
I have 3.
How are they doing?
They're doing great.
Good.
At that time, it was my first child. I didn't know what was considered normal. And because it was in front of both my husband and brother-in-law at the time, I started second-guessing myself, thinking maybe I misunderstood what happened, or maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed.
And how did you feel when you found out that there were all these other women who something had happened to?
I was blown away, but it also validated that I wasn't wrong, that it wasn't something that I made bigger in my head. I immediately called and said, I will be a witness for their case.
Let's talk about what's happened in your case, which is that you file this case. This judge dismisses it. What happened? What was the specific reasons that the judge dismissed it?
Well, so the case was never filed as a medical malpractice case, right? As we all know, sexual abuse is not a form of medical care. The defense lawyers for the hospital, for the institutions where Broadbent was employed or had an affiliation with, raised the question with the court to say, hey, these cases aren't pled properly. They should be pled as medical malpractice cases. This was a calculated legal tactic that the hospital's defense lawyers deployed, because if it's a medical malpractice case, there's a shorter statute of limitations in Utah, and also there's a cap on what can be recovered.
A Dallas mom says she tried to keep her 12-year-old son safe from harm, but last week her nightmare came true when her son told her as he was walking home from school, someone kidnapped him at gunpoint and then sexually assaulted him. Dallas police arrested the suspect, and tonight they say there could be other victims out there.
I knew something was wrong with my child.
This worried Dallas mom hasn't slept because she says what happened to her son is beyond painful.
My son was kidnapped and sexually assaulted at gunpoint.
She said it happened last week in Oak Cliff. Her son, just 12 years old, told her he was walking to school near Moore and 8th Streets. He says a man approached him, pointed a gun at him, and got him into a maroon SUV by force, drove off and sexually assaulted the boy, and called him racial slurs before dropping him off where he found him.
My baby tried to jump out of the car. He restrained my child, hit my child.
She says her son identified the suspect, 34-year-old William Beckham, in a photo lineup. And last week, Dallas police arrested him. He's charged with aggravated assault to a child.
Hate is a strong word, but I hate you because of what you did to my child, how you tormented my kid.
Just days before, in Irving, along George Bush Turnpike and Rainier Street, documents show a 13-year-old boy was also a victim. He identified the same suspect and told Irving police the man kidnapped him at gunpoint, sexually assaulted him, then dropped him off steps away from his home. According to court documents, the suspect threatened to hurt the boy if he told anyone. Dallas police say even more children may be victims of the same crime.
They need to contact the Dallas Police Department, and we will absolutely take care of them.
Tonight, Beckham is still in the Dallas County Jail, and while the investigation is far from over,
you hurt the wrong family.
Young boys and their families are left with anger and trauma.
Warning other parents after she says a man abducted her son on the way to school and sexually assaulted him.
The suspect is behind bars, but investigators tell us they've already connected him to a second attack.
Police say one assault happened in Dallas, the other in Irving. Damon Fernandez went to the Oak Cliff area to speak with one victim's mother.
Some neighbors in Oak Cliff are on high alert right now after police say this man, 34-year-old William Rex Beckham, was arrested and charged with 2 counts of aggravated sexual assault of a child last week.
My son was kidnapped and sexually assaulted at gunpoint.
One mother speaking out right now, saying she wants to warn other parents about what happened to her son. She says her 12-year-old was walking to school on May 9th when the accused man approached him near Moore and 8th Streets. The child said the man held a gun to his head and forced him into this maroon SUV.
My baby tried to jump out of the car. He restrained my child, hit my child.
The woman says the suspect drove her son to a nearby neighborhood, then forced the child to get into the back seat. The boy told his mom the man sexually assaulted him at gunpoint while calling him racial slurs.
Hate is a strong word, but I hate you because of what you did to my child, how you tormented my kid.
According to court documents, that Dallas assault happened just days after a 13-year-old boy from Irving reported Beckham also sexually assaulted him at gunpoint. That teen told police the man picked him up at President George Bush Turnpike and Rainier Street. Sources say the suspect threatened to harm both boys if they reported the crimes.
You preyed on the wrong child. You hurt the wrong family.
That worried mom says the trauma for her son, for her family, is unbearable. We've learned both victims identified Beckham in a photo lineup. Detectives believe there could be other victims.
They need to contact the Dallas Police Department, and we will absolutely take care of them and absolutely ensure that they have everything they need.
For now, Beckham remains in Dallas County Jail, and this remains an ongoing investigation.
And now developing tonight, a former Columbia University gynecologist who admitted he sexually abused patients was just been found guilty of federal sex trafficking charges.
A Manhattan jury returning the verdict against Robert Haddon after less than a day of deliberating. CBS 2's Tim McNicholas live in Lower Manhattan with the latest. Tim.
Maurice and Christine, just this afternoon, U.S. Attorney Damian Williams described Haddon as a predator in a white coat. Patients have said that he assaulted them during what they thought were supposed to be gynecological exams, and that for years he gained their trust, lured them over state lines, and then abused them.
Day one, I was repulsed. He showed no remorse the entire trial.
Liz Hall says she will never find closure after Robert Haddon abused her, but she says today's verdict is an important step.
And when the first guilty verdict came in, I think what you heard were screams of joy.
Those screams came from Hall and other victims inside the courtroom. Haddon was a gynecologist who worked at Columbia University Irving Medical Center and New York Presbyterian Hospital. In 2016, he surrendered his medical license but avoided prison time on sexual assault charges at the state level as part of a plea deal. Today's verdict was for federal charges that he lured patients over state lines and abused them.
It hasn't fully hit us yet.
Hall did not testify in the federal trial because she says she lived in New York when she was abused, but she did provide a victim statement to the court.
I think we're all still shaking and crying and trying to wrap our minds around it.
Last fall, New York Presbyterian and Columbia University Irving Medical Center agreed to pay more than $165 million to 147 former patients who accused Haddon of assault. Evelyn Yang, who first spoke out in 2020 about the abuse she suffered from Haddon, called today's verdict a relief.
My name is forever tied to Haddon's name, unfortunately, but you know, it's been very triggering over the years to see my name next to his, basically in every article. But it was worth it for today's outcome.
An Indiana licensing board has extended the suspension of a doctor in Grant County. Dr. William Moore is under investigation for sexually assaulting his patients and taking inappropriate photos of them.
Our Taylor Williams has been looking into why no charges have been filed yet, and she talked to a lawyer who wants your help. Taylor.
Indiana State Police say there is an active investigation into Moore. We want to warn you, what you're about to hear is explicit. Viewer discretion is advised.
I am respectfully not going to answer that question pursuant to my right against self-incrimination.
This is video from Grant County Dr. William Moore's first suspension hearing. He went before the Indiana Medical Licensing Board in January. Investigators began looking into Moore and his practices after he was accused of sexual assault and taking inappropriate photos of his patients without their permission. A petition for his suspension came from the office of the Indiana Attorney General. Moore was serving as the Grant County Health Officer at the time of this investigation. In the petition, the Attorney General states Moore is a, quote, clear and imminent danger to the public, end quote. The board also heard from victims.
It's incredibly shocking to see that photo. So not only was it a photo of my genitalia, it was a photo of myself being held apart by one gloved hand and one ungloved hand.
They went into detail about what they say Moore did to them.
As I'm laying there, he puts the speculum in and I could hear a click of a shutter. And so I immediately started to panic inside.
Moore's license was suspended by the board for 90 days initially. Thursday, the board met again and extended Moore's suspension an additional 90 days. Moore was an OBGYN in Marion for nearly 3 decades before his suspension. He has since retired and is not practicing medicine. The law firm Wagner Reese is representing the patients of Dr. Moore and took to their Facebook page calling for more people to come forward. So far, dozens have spoken up since the news of Moore's suspension, and more are expected to come forward.
This is inexcusable and cannot happen to one more person.
The Indiana State Police Department says this is an active investigation. No criminal charges have been filed at this time. Once the investigation is complete, it will be turned over to the Grant County Prosecutor's Office to determine potential charges.
A South Kingstown man pleaded not guilty to more than a dozen criminal charges from over a decade of alleged incidents. 45-year-old Luke Gideon is being accused of sexual assault, and police say his alleged victims are young. Sheena Lasciuto joins us now live in studio with what we know and what we're working to find out.
Well, South Kingstown police say this is just step one in getting justice for the suspect's victims, but officials haven't just said how many alleged victims are out there or what exactly led up to the arrest. This is 45-year-old Luke Gideon. He's facing 14 criminal charges.
Counts 2 through 6, first-degree sexual assault,
including first and second degree child molestation sexual assault and first and second degree sexual assault. According to the Attorney General's office, the alleged crimes took place over a decade, between January 2012 and September of 2022. South Kingstown police say the suspect has been in custody since October.
How do you plead?
Not guilty as to each count.
Thank you very much, Attorney Pelletier.
Gideon remains behind bars at the ACI tonight, held without bail. The details of the case were not read in the courtroom, but authorities say the alleged assaults took place in South Kingstown. It's unclear how or if the suspect was tied to the victims or how many were impacted.
He's executing with no context.
Thank you very much.
Without revealing any other details, South Kingstown's police chief offered this statement. Reading in part, today's indictment is the first step in finding justice for his young victims. I'm proud of the work that our detectives did on this case and grateful for their determination. Gideon is scheduled to be back in court on April 24th. We asked both police and the Attorney General's office for more information on the case itself, but I haven't heard back yet. I'm Sheena Lasciuto, 12 News.
Tonight, we have new information about the South Kingstown man charged with more than a dozen counts of child molestation and sexual assault. We first reported on his indictment Friday, which prosecutors claim covers a decade of alleged crimes.
Police say he's been in custody since October. 12 News reporter Sheena Lasciuto joins us now live in studio with what else we've learned about this case.
Well, police confirmed for us the alleged assaults took place in South Kingstown. Now, while we don't know just how many possible victims are out there, police describe them as young. Led into the courtroom in handcuffs, Luke Gideon answers to more than a dozen charges.
Counts 2 through 6, first-degree sexual assault,
including first and second degree child molestation sexual assault and first and second degree sexual assault. According to the Attorney General's office, the alleged crimes took place over a decade, between January 2012 and September of 2022. South Kingstown police say the suspect has been in custody since October.
How do you plead?
Not guilty as to each count.
Thank you very much, Attorney Pelletier.
Gideon remains behind bars at the ACI tonight, held without bail. The details of the case were not read in the courtroom, but authorities say the alleged assaults took place in South Kingstown. It's unclear how or if the suspect was tied to the victims or how many were impacted.
He's executing with no context.
Thank you very much.
Without revealing any other details, South Kingstown's police chief offered this statement. Reading in part, today's indictment is the first step in finding justice for his young victims. I'm proud of the work that our detectives did on this case and grateful for their determination.
Suspected of multiple sex crimes against underage girls.
He's also facing weapons charges. State police say 26-year-old Jamal Lewis is accused of targeting vulnerable underage girls for the last 3 years. Troopers arrested him and searched his home yesterday following an extensive investigation. Inside the home, state police say they found a loaded gun with a high-capacity magazine, State police also say the weapon's serial number had been altered. Lewis is being held without bail tonight.
WSAV's investigative unit today asking questions about a teenager with ties to Savannah-Chatham County School District in jail this afternoon, charged with 2 counts of aggravated child molestation. And our lead investigative reporter, Brett Buffington, is following this story. He joins us now from the Savannah Police Headquarters with the details on what he's learned about this case. Hi, Brett.
Good evening, Tina, or good afternoon, Tina, I should say. We do know that the Special Victims Unit of the Savannah Police Department is working this case, but police are not telling us very much about it, citing restrictions because it does involve what they say is child abuse. We do know this was reported to police over a month ago. Take a look at this. This is 19-year-old Mikael Wiles. He's charged with 2 counts of aggravated child molestation, 1 count of enticing a minor. Now, promoted on a social media account with his name and picture, he's portrayed as being a coach with Savannah High School. Also, we found on a nationwide popular high school sports website where it also lists Wiles as assistant coach with the school. The school district telling us today that they are aware of those posts online, but say Wiles does not work for the district, at least not as a full-time employee, but is paid to be a part of the event working staff on somewhat of a contract basis. Now, this afternoon, we have confirmed that Wiles is still in the Chatham County Jail. He's being held without a bond. We'll have much more on the school district's reaction to this arrest coming up.
Effingham County deputies have arrested an 84-year-old commissioner on child sex crime charges. WJCL 22 News' Kyra Naveau joins us live from the Effingham County Jail. And Kai, he was charged with 2 felonies.
Yep, Riley, Commissioner Reginald Reggie Loper was charged here in the jail behind me. He's in Effingham County Jail, and he's charged with sexual battery misdemeanor and child molestation. Now, he's been representing Effingham County District 4 since 2004, and that's parts of Rincon and Springfield. He has represented Effingham on the state level as a member of the Georgia Coastal Regional Commission and was appointed by former Governor Sonny Perdue to serve on the Regional Water Council for Coastal Georgia. The Board of Commissioners released a statement to WJCL. It reads, "The Effingham County Board of Commissioners is aware of the allegations against Mr. Loper. He has served the county and constitutes well for nearly 2 decades, as we pray for him and his family as they deal with this situation."
And the Brazos County DA's office has sentenced this man, Warren Tyler, to 7 years for child pornography possession in November of 2020. A mother found Tyler with videos of her daughter on his cell phone. The videos were taken through a hole in the door of a bathroom inside the woman's home. In the trial, the jury deliberated over an hour, and the defendant will now be registered as a sex offender and spend the next 7 years behind bars.
Well, a St. John, Indiana man is under arrest after police in Fishers say he is wanted for several charges of child molestation. Police got word about a 12-year-old girl who had been touched inappropriately by a male chaperone while staying at the Staybridge Suites Hotel in Fishers. Police arrested 37-year-old Nicholas Jones. He's now in the Hamilton County Jail.
So as you can see, these cases just pile up and pile up and pile up. And I honestly do not like the fact that the news does the little short 20-second news clip on it. And a lot of the times that news channel may not even readdress the case or follow up. However, there are other ways to get some of the information or to look at the other aspects of cases like this, which is what I plan on starting to do tomorrow. So make sure that you guys are checking the video section, but I do want to do a lot of them on live stream. Now, I'm well aware that just because I speak about this topic, or me and 5 other people or 10 other people, or all the channel holders on YouTube that do talk about this topic, it's not going to make it stop. But awareness at the end of the day does prevent it from happening. And at the end of the day, these children in these clips that were abused, they have to live with that for the rest of their life, just like the rape victims that were in these situations have to deal with it for the rest of their life. And it saddens me when people only become interested about this topic when it happens to them or somebody they love. A victim is a victim, but at the end of the day, we can be vigilant in our communities about this and stand up against it. And maybe, we can get some changes made, along with some other actions, of course. But at the end of the day, I have chosen to look at different aspects of true crime. Like I said, we've talked about interrogations, body cams, news clips and things like that, and I'm ready to bring in another. So I am excited on this new journey as well. But you guys got to make sure that you guys are checking out my video section. Some of them will be in video form and some will be in live stream. Most of them will be in live stream mode. Just the shorter versions will be in video, but they may be different from what I'm going live about. So if you're not checking the video section, then you may miss something. Also, I plan on doing this at some point in time on my true crime channel, but I do like doing interrogations over there as well. And maybe that's where I'll just do some of the news stuff on top of that. So at the end of the day, I speak out about this because I am a survivor and I am an advocate against these type of predators abusing the community, and I'll continue to do that. Thank you for watching the video. Much love. Stay you, stay royal, stay uncompromisable, and please stay woke, because you will see me or hear my voice in another video or live stream. Much love, y'all. Bye-bye.